Well, hello everyone. Wanted to go ahead and put together a little video to talk about the material out of this chapter dealing with schools and schooling. So let's go ahead and get started. Really, if we're going to talk about child development in schools, really one of the first questions we want to look at is your child ready for school? And to do that, we basically have to turn around, okay, and ask ourselves, what does it take to make for an effective school? Okay, we want children to be able to learn material and learn it well. So, what need be done to make this happen? And really, the topic to address is what we call school readiness. Okay, um, if you ask people what is the biggest determining factor for a child, what is the factor we use to determine if a child is ready for school? To start kindergarten, and the vast majority will tell you age. They'll tell you that when the child turns around and turns a certain age, all right, they're ready to start kindergarten. And if you're curious, and hopefully you know this, if you ask most parents or students, how old do you have to be to start kindergarten? Typically, the age is age 5. Okay? Believe it or not all research agrees that being 5 years old is the best predictor for being ready for school. Okay. Studies have actually found that there are other uh, factors that are better determinants, okay, of if a child is ready for school, other than just basically saying, okay, yesterday you were 4, today you're 5, so now when the next round of school starts, you'll be ready to begin kindergarten. Some of the better predictors, according to researchers, include, you know, is there an eagerness to learn? Is a child enthusiastic or not? Children who are enthusiastic about school tend to do better at school rather than children who don't. Um, are children up on their immunizations? What's interesting about immunizations is this, we're talking their overall health, okay? And in the state of Missouri, to go to in a public school, you are required to have certain immunizations before you start, unless you have typically it's religious objections to immunizations, and then you can sign documents and paperwork to that effect. If that's the case, then some people turn around and do that. That's not always the best way to do things. In my personal opinion, as a psychologist with a family that works in medicine, but that's just an opinion. We're not testing over my opinions. What kind of communication skills does a child have? Children with good communication skills, the ability to start a conversation, take turns in a conversation, ask questions, finish a conversation, do better at school than those kids that really are still struggling with that. And then finally, social skills, knowing how to be helpful, knowing how to ask for something, knowing basic social skills of taking turns and things like that. Children who are better at these things tend to do better in school than children that are still struggling with them in this regard. These things are better predictors, but we don't tend to use them because for a host of reasons. All right. There's no way to really measure eagerness to learn or enthusiasm that any school system has embraced. There is no test over social skills or communication skills, and no one is saying, "Hey, your child is 5 years old." However, they failed the communication skills test, so basically they're not able to start. We don't tend to do that. For the most part, parents don't see these things as being the most important predictors. They just don't. Age 5, and if you're going to get into the cognitive abilities, okay, parents often see basic academic or cognitive abilities. Um, if you ask them what matters, those are more important than health. Uh, they're more important than communication skills. They're more important than social skills, and so on. Now, if you turn around and you ask parents, okay, children need to have certain cognitive skills to be ready for school. What should they be? And most parents will tell you for kindergarten, what they would like to see is children that have the ability to count to 10 by the time they're starting kindergarten and can typically say their ABCs, knows their alphabet. All right? There aren't even many tests to gauge this as well, that are nationally created and so on and so forth. Researchers find that approximately 65% of kindergartners are at acceptable readiness levels. Okay, even when it comes to these academic skills, about 65% know the alphabet and know their counting in that regard. The interesting question is, what about the 35% that are not ready? There's no clear answer. We don't have a special kindergarten class that I'm aware of for people like that. Holding them back doesn't necessarily work. You know, who's the issue here? It's hard to say. Some blame the parents, some blame the schools in that regard. Okay, so these are some of the things that we rely on. Age 5 and being able to count and know your alphabet. There are others that are better, but sometimes they're not looked upon. Okay, I'm not done with school readiness, but I want to make that clear. Now, in terms of school readiness, one thing that's very, very important is this. Why do some children fail while others succeed? I think this is a very, very important thing to know. When you see kids getting into school, some succeed, some fail, and why is that? The key is what we call student attributes. Okay. Um, there really are 5 attributes that students have in play that affect their ability to be successful or not. And I want to go over these if I can. The biggest 5 attributes that affect how some children do, some succeed versus others. Start off with ability. Does a child have the ability to do certain tasks, certain cognitive tasks, certain social tasks, and things like that? How motivated are they? How much effort are they willing to put forth to learn a given task? I think effort is a very, very big thing. How difficult is the task? All right. Depending upon what is put forward in front of them, they may or may not be able to do it at that time. They may not even be mature enough to handle the task, depending upon what it is. Some are surprised by this next one. I put this in here. I say luck. And the reason I say luck is because luck refers to, do you get that teacher that explains something in such a way that it just makes sense, it clicks. Whereas with another teacher, you don't get that. And that happens at times. All right. And then how do you go about learning? All right. Are you studying? Is there some strategy you use? In college, I've seen students that type up notes as I lecture. I've seen kids that write things down. I've seen them highlight their book, changing it from white to yellow with a yellow highlighter. I've even seen them make up note cards as they go. So these are all different strategies that children may use, that even teenagers and adults may use, and so on. You got to realize which of these are within a child's control. Okay, if you look at this list of 5 and ask yourself, which do children tend to control? And really the answer is that's an internal factor is ability, okay, motivation or effort, and the strategy they use to solve problems. Luck and task difficulty are outside of a child's control. They're external factors, and you can't influence them necessarily. All right. And I would go so far as to say, I say that ability, effort, and strategy use are internal factors. They all come from within the child, but really the ones of those 3, the ones that you really control are effort and strategy use. Okay. Some kids have the ability to do some things and it clicks, and other kids have to put forth more effort and strategy. Know what your child can control. Know what your child can influence. Their effort, their strategy, that kind of thing. All right, because it can make a big difference in that regard. All right. Now, some other factors to success that are worth noting here, all right, is the teacher. Okay. Studies have actually found that teachers are very influential, especially in kindergarten through sixth grade, on student success. Okay. In fact, teachers who often think they are effective, studies have found, tend to actually be more effective. All right. This is an example of what we call a self-fulfilling prophecy, where children turn around and if they have teachers that believe in them, children K through 6 a lot of times do better than teachers who do not see their ability to teach in a positive way. They don't think they have what it takes to for a child to learn, and so on and so forth. So those of you who are considering being a teacher, the self-fulfilling prophecy says that children often become what you expect them to become. Okay, especially in these early ages. If you think children can do well and you strive for that goal in them, they have a better chance of doing well. If children are looked upon by a teacher, maybe a particular student, as a troublemaker, sometimes that's what they become. All right, and that's how they're perceived and that's how they act. It's sort of that self-fulfilling prophecy. So, in that regard, teachers have much more influence than some might expect. And sometimes you're sort of surprised by that, to say the least. Right? When we talk about classroom climate, another key to success, you sort of have to ask yourself this, okay? What was your class like? Some of your classes like, say, fourth grade, okay? Was it loud? Was it quiet? Did the students mind? Did the students not mind? We're talking student characteristics, okay? Student characteristics can influence a class a great deal, and sometimes even one or two students can cause a class to get a little out of control. Or if you have people that turn around and are very positive, all right, I've seen classes that become very competitive because each student wants to get a better score than the other student in the class. And so they work harder to, uh, I got a 98, I got a 95, I got this on the spelling test, I got that. And that's part of the characteristics of the student that contribute to the classroom climate. Another thing is the volume of the class. I guess I already said that. Um, class volume, is it loud or not? Another thing is teacher characteristics. As I said above, is the teacher warm? Is the teacher friendly? Is the teacher helpful or not? Those things can definitely come into play. Okay. Also needed with teachers is good, just good teaching skills. A lot of programs in education today, excuse me, a lot of college classes for educators work to teach you how to be a better teacher, okay? And that can and does happen. Um, so we see the opportunity for good teaching skills, even classroom setup. How was the room designed? Is there colorful things? Is the alphabet in a kindergarten or first grade class written across the top of the board? Those kind of things. All right. Class size. Studies say that class size, okay, is important, at least in the elementary schools. Say that again. The size of the class is important, at least in elementary schools. In fact, what we find a lot of times is that um, smaller is better. Sorry, I got sidetracked there. Smaller is better. And some schools will even push that. We have a good teacher to student ratio, and lower is better. Studies find that when you get into high school and even college, class size doesn't matter as much. In fact, if you haven't already, there's always a chance you may end up at a major college or university and find yourself in a classroom of 100 students or 150 students. The biggest I ever had was a classroom of 300 students. It was a general biology class taught over at Missouri State decades ago, and it was just a huge lecture hall. So, that can come into play as well. Still, some other factors that can have an influence: the principal. All right. Ask yourself this, okay? Did you have a principal who turned around and stayed in their office most of the time? Did you have a principal that turned around and got out in the hallway between classes? Did the principal know your name? Hopefully for good things and not, not so good things. Um, did you ever see them at sporting events and things like that? Principals' attitudes can actually influence how well a child does in school. And so that can be a very, very big factor in that regard. All right. And right along with that is faculty. Okay. Faculty participation. I've asked my classes, a lot of times, my seated classes, who was your favorite teacher? What was their name and why? And I've gotten them from elementary to middle school to junior high to high school. And most of them will tell me that their favorite teacher was one that was very involved and very passionate about what they did. And that involvement and that passion, um, if you become a teacher, sometimes you think that the students don't notice it. The fact of the matter is that they do. And it does make a difference. In fact, in many schools, especially middle schools, junior high, and high schools, faculty a lot of times are asked or required to show up for extracurricular activities. You go, maybe you're playing sports, volleyball, basketball, football, and you look up in the stands and there's your teacher. You're in the play, let's say, at your school, and you look out in the audience and there's your teacher. Um, Students, research tells us they like that. They like seeing that. And it makes a difference. All right. And so if you do get into education, it's definitely something to keep in mind. All right. Those are some of the ways for school readiness, from principals to faculty to class size to class design to prepping a child what works and what doesn't. Hope all that helps. Take care.